Good morning. My name is Andrea with Happy Cloud Creations. And I am jumping on today because it is week 6 of the Infinite Night Helix Quilt Along. So if you jump on, say hi so I can make sure I can see comments. I'm live on Facebook and on Instagram. So if you are joining in this quilt along, I hope you're having fun. We only have, this week? Then we have 2 more weeks of blocks. And then the last week, we're putting our quilt tops together. So we'll have quilts in November. Yay! Mine's a king size, so I'm still not sure. I think I might send it to a long arm. My first time. So it's like, I never know when to start getting into it or if I should wait to see if more people will jump on. You know what I mean? I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. This weekend was nice. We went up to Whidbey Island. I live in Washington State. We visited my husband's family. It was a lot of fun. Got to play in the leaves and pick some pumpkins. All right, so I'm going to get into it. I'm just going to assume people are coming for the replay on Facebook. So lots of people over on Instagram. Hello. So today we're going to start on page 11. This week we will be making 2 of block I and 4 of block J. These blocks go together super quickly. That's why it sounds like a lot of blocks, 6 blocks. But they go together really quick since we did all that prep work in the first couple weeks. These blocks will go together really quickly. If you have any questions about how these blocks go together, please let me know. Try to make sure to see comments. And also, if you're watching this as the replay and you have questions, you can always email me at happycloudcreations@gmail.com, or you can send me or tag me in the Facebook Quilt Along group, or send me a private message on either Facebook or on Instagram. Hello, Linda. Yay! Somebody on Facebook did show up. Okay, so if you have any questions, let me know. We're going to go over block I. I'm making the king size, so my pieces are fairly large. Step 1, we are going to start making that center star of the block. And we're going to take the flying geese we made earlier in the quilt along, and we're going to sew 2 to that center square block. When I'm sewing these on, I like to make sure that this side is up so that I can see where my stitches are going. And I like for it, if you are doing a correct 1/4 inch seam, your needle will go right above that little triangle so that when you open this up and press it, you won't lose your points. And so we're going to sew 2 to the side of the square. We're making 2 of these blocks. If you are doing the baby size, you're jumping onto page 13 and making O and M, or you can take a little break this week. And then we're going to have 4 of these type of units. Wrong way. 1 for the top, 1 for the bottom, but we're making 2 stars. So again, just sewing these to the sides. You're just going to want to make sure your seam is consistent throughout. If it is smaller on one of the sides, when you press this open, these little side pieces will wing out. So you just want to make sure that seam is consistent 1/4 inch scant throughout. And then when we go to put these together, you'll notice I pressed my seams on the center piece inward, and then I pressed my seams on the side pieces outward. Oh, I got a hair in my eye. Sorry. Okay. And so if you notice that, when we go to sew them together, the seams will nest nicely. Let me see if I can show you. they'll just butt right up to each other and nest nicely. And I always pin in place. It helps me with accuracy. I know some people hate pinning, but I really like pinning in place to make sure they're accurate. Oh, hello, Viola, you made it. So, again, when you're sewing these side pieces on, I like to have the triangle piece on top so you can make sure you're sewing correctly over that point. Your needle goes right above the point, and then your block will turn out like this. All of the steps have pressing instructions, and with this one I like to press this inward because it gives it a little less bulk if you're pressing it inward. And that piece is done. And so then you'd set those aside, and then we're going to work on the side panels to that block. I know these blocks are fairly large, especially if you're making the king size, but I like making big blocks because then it makes it feel like the quilt goes together a lot quicker. If you're making a ton of small blocks, it's going to feel like, oh my goodness, it's going to take forever for this quilt to go together, you know? But if they're large blocks, I feel like the quilt goes together really quickly, which I love. And I feel like this quilt is a pretty fun design, and even though it's a fun design, it can go together pretty quickly. Instead of just like a bunch of squares, you know what I mean? So, this next step, steps 2, first off, we're going to be sewing squares together. You can just pick up the squares and sew them together without pinning. If you're sewing a lot together at a time, you might want to pin them together just to make sure you're sewing the correct things. But you're going to have one background piece with your A and one background piece with your B colors. For each, or for, not one, for each side, you're going to need 2 white, or 2 A, and then for your other side, you're going to need 2. So, a total, we need 4 of each color combo, which down here in the pattern, at the end of each step, it tells you, okay, this size, we need 4 of each color combo. Because we're going to take those arrows, those small arrows we made earlier, and we're going to sew these to the sides of these small arrows. And that's one of the reasons the small arrows we press downward. And with these, we press upward so that when we go to put these together, the seams will nest nicely. Pin those in place. And voila, we got our finished unit for the sides. One side will have a B-D combo, and the other side will have the A-D combo. Once these units are done, nice and pressed, I still, go along with the pressing arrows. Step 4, you're basically sewing all these units together. Mine's a little wrinkled. I need to press that a little better. For this, so you're going to want to make sure you're taking the star and where you have them pressed inward is going to be this way, because if you flip it this way, they're pressed outward and they won't nest. So make sure you have it the right direction. And then you will pin your side pieces on, nesting your seams. That's right. Nesting your seams. I don't have a finished block because we were only supposed to make 2 of those blocks today. So that's fairly easy. Nest those seams up and pin them in place and sew. And then we have 2 block eyes because you're going to have 2 of the same exact columns. So let's see. It'll look like this when it's finished. Does anybody have questions about block I? I think it's pretty easy. It looks like a very complicated quilt pattern from a distance. But if you break everything down and do it step by step and pay attention to what you're sewing together, it can be fairly easy, I think. My husband looks at the pattern, he's like, that looks crazy. But, you know, if you just break it down and go slowly at your own pace, it's not that hard. All right, so we'll flip over to page 12. Page 12, on the top we have block J. We'll be making 4 of block J because 2 will go on one side and 2 will go on the other side. One column, each column needs 2 block J's. In this one, we're going to take 1 of each color small arrow, 1 of our diamond in squares, and 2 of our small rectangles. And it'll tell you what size rectangle you need right here in the instructions. So, and then basically what I like to do is lay them all out. So what I like to do, you can either just sew these 3 portions together first and then sew your rectangles, or you can just pin all of the pieces together, and if you're not worried about scraping yourself with pins, typically I will just pin all of the portions together and then sew them together. And then the final product looks like this. When you are sewing them together, I do have a little tip for, where is it? There we go. So to get these points to line up correctly, what I like to do, my pins must be behind my computer. Of course, I don't know what happened to my pins. So what I like to do is I like to take a pin and I poke it right here, and then I like to line it up with this point and I poke it so that they are exactly matched up. And then when I have the pin going through both tops of the triangles, then I will pin the rest of the piece together so it lines up correctly. Where my pin cushion went? That is right behind my computer. So then when you go to open them up, your points will be pretty close to being right next to each other. Most of mine turned out pretty good. The little bit of the yellow one is a little chopped, but once that's quilted and, you know, washed and dried, you won't even be able to notice that. This pattern is easy and fast. Putting it all together can get dicey. It's like a puzzle. I'm almost done with quilt 2. Yay, Carrie! Yeah, so it's like, it can be hard if you don't look at the diagrams correctly, because there's so many blocks that are the same or they're similar, but the placement is different. So you just want to make sure to take careful looking at the placement of all the different colors and how many you're supposed to make of each block. That's why I said this is more of an intermediate pattern than a beginner-friendly pattern, because I know most of my patterns are beginner-friendly, and I didn't want to make an intermediate, but I wanted to make this design for my nephew. So I was like, well, it's a little harder than all my other patterns, but most people that have done my patterns know how to do each unit that's involved in this pattern. So, like, you should be able to actually complete the units. It's just making sure you put those units in the correct spot. That's the tricky part, right? Does anybody have questions with block J? Block J is pretty easy, I think. Oh, the one thing about this one, the pressing instructions do tell you to press inward. Typically, I press inward. Since I might be having this one quilted by a long armor, I decided to press these 2 seams open just to make sure there was less bulk, because I'm not sure how she's going to quilt it yet. So I pressed these open so there would be less bulk, since we do have those intersecting points and it could be really bulky at those 2 points. So you can just press those open. What I typically do is when I'm pressing something open, I open it on the back, and I'll finger press this open with my finger, and then I'll take my iron and press it. And then I'll press open the bulky part with my finger and press it with the iron. I don't just use the iron to press it open because I feel like sometimes it doesn't press it open all the way. So I like to do it with my fingers first and then press open with the iron. And we have this little unit. So next week we will be making, what? K&L, the bottom of 12. So if you're a little behind, this week will help you catch up, and the next 2 weeks are fairly easy too. So you should be able to catch up by the time the last week. If not, that's fine too. Just keep posting your progress photos when you can. You don't have to worry about being on schedule. Because I know a lot of things happen in people's lives, and sometimes you just can't be right along with the group, but we still love seeing those progress photos in the group. So if you're a little behind, that's fine. You can still take your photos and post them, and we'd love to see them. If you have any questions for me, you can always email me at happycloudcreations@gmail.com, or you can message me on my Instagram or my Facebook profile. I guess that's it. I hope you guys have a great day. I have a couple, so I have one block. I guess I have to finish both block eyes. One's almost done. So maybe I'll be able to finish those today, and then I will see you guys here next Tuesday. It might be 10 a.m. I do next Tuesday. My kids have early release. They have half days next week. So I may start the video a little earlier since they have half days next week. So I will put an event in the Facebook Quilt Along group to let you know for sure what time I will be jumping on. And as always, I will post it in my Instagram and my Facebook post, and it will go out in my newsletter. I know this morning my newsletter went out saying October 5th because I copied my last week's email. I did not change that. So when you're editing emails at 4:30 a.m., make sure to proofread them very well. So I guess that's it. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.